Welcome to another week of Sunbelt Conference football. I'm Andrew Zimmel. Scott, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing phenomenally well. Very excited about another week.
Well, let's start. We'll go over the two games that got postponed because my favorite team didn't get to play, Coastal Carolina, and your favorite team, Troy, didn't get to lose. And ULM and Arkansas State didn't play, which pretty much saved us the embarrassment for both of those programs. But those two postponements, I don't think they're the end of the world. I'm glad that we got those out of the way now. But I did miss seeing Coastal play this weekend.
Absolutely. I was going to say that neither of my teams lost this week, and that's a big positive. You know, I walked out of Saturday and said, you know what, the Chanticleers are still undefeated. Troy didn't lose. This is a positive outcome. This is a good week.
And I don't think Coastal moved anywhere in the polls, did they? I'm pretty sure they're still at 15.
They didn't move, but Marshall moved up with them. They're now tied at 15 together.
Okay. I don't love that, but hopefully this coming week that they'll win again and jump ahead. All right, let's talk about this last weekend. Louisiana and South Alabama. We were talking a little bit before the program, talking about Lewis, the quarterback for Lafayette, and how he is the first quarterback who's taking advantage of this COVID rule. He gets another year of eligibility. So he said, hey, I'm going to take another year. I'm going to have a fun time in college. This is kind of big for the Sun Belt Conference, Scott.
It is, especially for a guy like Levi Lewis, who could have easily said, you know, I'm going to get out of here and, you know, grad transfer and use my extra year to play at a bigger school, play quarterback over there. But during the season, he's deciding that he's going to come back to Louisiana. I need to go look up the article on that so I can find a motive. But that's very big news. And as you said, he's the first big Sun Belt player to make that decision. The big question is, of course, is he coming back with Billy Napier?
Yeah, that's fair. We can talk about Billy Napier here in a second, though. But do you think Louisiana – look, they run that division. They won the division again this year. Are they the team for the foreseeable future, no matter who the quarterback is, that they're going to run the west side of the bracket?
For right now, yeah, especially with Arkansas State just falling off the map this year and no reason to believe they can recover. That this appears to be Louisiana's division for some time. South Alabama, they can come around as we saw that was the game that decided the West for whatever reason this year was the South Alabama-Louisiana game. I can't see any other team that could possibly even scratch the surface of this division over the next 20 years.
Now, we can talk about how good Louisiana looked. They won 38-10. South Alabama kind of had a bad showing on offense. But I want to talk about Billy Napier because South Carolina fires their coach, and Billy Napier's name immediately becomes the discussion point where people are talking, is this the guy who might replace him? As somebody who has covered the Sun Belt, Scott, is this a possibility? Do you think that Napier might be the guy?
It's very possible that he's out of here. I don't know if it's South Carolina. I think that South Carolina is going to give him a hard look because he is a Nick Saban assistant. And he's done very well. I'm kind of surprised that Napier's still around this year, honestly. And if he wins, if he beats Coastal Carolina at the end of this season or App State, but probably Coastal Carolina at the end of this season, it's going to be a hard name to pass up on for really anybody at the Power 5 level.
It's interesting because, you know, Gary Patterson on the Big 12 conference call today was talking about how we already saw coaches getting fired, that this is a year that people do care about. This wasn't a throwaway year that we thought it might be for some coaches and organizations. Billy Napier, he was not my first choice. Again, I said I saw Arkansas State's head coach leaving before anybody else. But at this point, I think it's him and I think it's the coach for Coastal. Would be the two hot commodities out of this conference right now, Scott.
Yeah, Jamie Chadwell is definitely having a big year. Personally, I don't know if a one-year coach gets stolen away after this season, especially with this year being such a weird year. And we've seen coaches just blow up and have a phenomenal season and not get stolen away. Neil Brown at Troy took 3 10-plus win seasons to get taken. Honestly, I don't see Jamie Chadwell getting picked up right now. There's a lot of chatter, of course, on Twitter today about a plane traveling from Columbia to Myrtle Beach, landing for all of 7 minutes and then going back to Columbia. So that's been the big talking point early in this week, of course.
Yeah, that's something to keep your eye on. All right, let's talk a little bit. Do we want to talk any more about South Alabama? Their season kind of feels like it's over at this point. They're not competing for the West. They're going to be a tough out anytime a team plays them, but I think that their season's kind of over. Is there anything else we want to break down from this game, Scott?
Well, what is South Alabama's record right now? What are they? 2-3? No,
They're
five,
3-5, 2-3
3
in
and
the
5,
Sun Belt.
3 and 5. I don't know. This season's not over. With the bowl season being so wide open, there's plenty of opportunities to get to 5 and 6 wins, and hope somebody picks them up in the postseason.
Well, I think everybody's eligible. It's going to be one of those, like, who wants them? I mean,
Yeah, everybody's eligible, but
Mobile's a pretty nice
I don't know.
conference.
If Arkansas State, stays at like 3 or 4 wins and South Alabama gets a 6, I think if you're a bowl game, you're gonna probably take South Alabama. I think if you're the Mobile, I think if you're that Mobile Bowl, you're gonna take South Alabama over Arkansas State in that situation.
That's fair. That's very fair. And again, I was saying Mobile, not a terrible market. They're pretty good market size in Mobile. So any team that can get them, you might be getting a little bit of that market, at least a couple shares. People would tune in to watch. I don't know. ESPN needs as many viewers as they can get. Let's talk our App State, Georgia State, in the game of the weekend, essentially, because we had a good win for App State, probably the best win they've had to this point, I think, beating Georgia State in a close one, 17-13. But Zac Thomas, you want to get into it?
Yeah, Zac Thomas, he played well. He managed the game well until towards the end of the game, got taken out. I honestly did not see the play. I had it up on my TV, but I was looking away, and I guess it was a late hit that may have taken him out, and did not look good. Did not look good. I know they brought an ambulance on the field. They had to stretch him off over there. I saw the reports. He did leave the hospital that day. So things are looking up right now, and that's something to monitor throughout the week. But something like that where you're stretchered off, I don't think we see Zac Thomas the rest of the year, but it does not appear to be as bad as it could have been.
Which is good. We're happy that it's not as bad as it could have been. It could have been a lot worse, would be another way to say that. But this really hurts App State, in my opinion. In any chance they had at beating Coastal, we talk about Zac Thomas. We rag on him a little bit on this show. We say, like, oh, he was supposed to be the best. He really hasn't been showing up this year. He's been a real game manager. But look, if App State wanted to beat Coastal, they were going to have everybody at 100%. They couldn't have any COVID health crisis or anything. They needed to have Zac Thomas. If he's not suiting up against Coastal Carolina, it's curtains, I think. I do not see him playing. Like you said, I don't see that making any impact.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And this definitely does hurt App State in the long run. Their backup, Jacob Huseman, he hasn't played significantly in really 2 years. And when he did, he threw 4 interceptions. I was trying to bring up his game log, but Sports Reference is being mean to me. I don't know why. Yeah, he played against Georgia Southern and Coastal Carolina 2 years ago, significant time. Threw 2 interceptions against Coastal Carolina 2 years ago.
And that Coastal Carolina defense was not what it is today. So I would be concerned. I don't know. I'm not like you, Scott. I try to stay off the message boards. I stay off of Reddit. I stay off those things because I get too twisted up. I mostly just let me get the stuff from Twitter. That is a pretty good filter for me. You might have a better pulse of this. How, I guess, distraught would our App State fans be? Because on Twitter, it felt like the world was ending, I thought.
That day, it looked pretty rough, but I think a lot of people are just concerned about Zac Thomas and his health. The only thing I've seen from App State Twitter today is ragging on Coastal Carolina for the aforementioned coaching news. But yeah, right now I don't feel a lot of concern from App State fans. They're still App State. They still win games. They're still hating on Coastal Carolina too. So this will be fun to look forward to see how App State plays in the next coming weeks. Well, I say weeks, they have Coastal Carolina this week. So this will be something fun to look at.
And, we talked about it last week when we were talking about Georgia State. We said, hey, they got the 2 most difficult teams back to back, playing Georgia State and then Coastal. And I'm not feeling great And if I was a Mountaineer fan, I'm not feeling super good. All right. Well, we just mentioned that this was the game of the week. I will say my team, Texas State, we were in contention for 4 quarters, Scott. Do you want to talk about Georgia Southern a little bit before I get on my soapbox about the best 1-9 team in the country?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and bring up Georgia Southern. They ran the ball very well without J.D. King, which is great. They got a great game out of Logan Wright, who I believe had his 3rd career 100-yard rushing game and 1st career 100-yard game against a conference opponent. So that's very good for Georgia Southern, knowing that you can lose one of the league's best running backs and lose no production whatsoever. They had 386 rushing yards in this game. That's going to win you a lot of football games. Even when you're Georgia Southern, that's all that you do. So good showing for Georgia Southern. Offensively, that's an area that they've been struggling in this year. They've shown a lot of inconsistencies on that side of the ball. But, of course, on the other side, they've been known for their defense, and your guys ran up 38 on that defense.
You love to see it. All right, but let me ask you, because I clearly look through maroon and gold glasses here. 3rd and 12, 4th quarter, roughing the passer is essentially the game-changing play. Was that roughing the passer, Scott?
No, I watched it. I remember seeing it. That was definitely super questionable. Extremely.
Okay. I'm just saying, Tyler Vick goes out with a broken wrist, it looks like. A dislocated wrist. He's got a wrist injury of some sort. Brady McBride, the former starter, turned backup, turned starter due to injury, has an incredible game. We just said that this might have been his best performance. 7 completions, 155 yards, no interceptions. This is great. It's great to be Brady McBride on Monday morning. But if you're Texas State, the Sun Belt Conference refs, not known to be the best of the conferences, not known to be the best probably in the country. I think they're one of the worst reffing crews week in and week out. This roughing the passer call, though, is just another tally on the bad marks on Sun Belt Conference refs, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is the 2nd time by my count that a call late in a game, a Sun Belt game, has really impacted the final result. Of course, the first being that Troy-Georgia State game with the onside kick. And these kind of things really cannot happen at the end of a game. You can't get these calls wrong.
Yeah, how do you fix that?
I have no idea. You got to come up with some kind of plan in the off season to just get better. I'm not in the officiating circles. I don't know what officiating practice looks like, but they need to do something differently, I think.
Got to go get some Pee Wee refs. Go get the replacement refs from the NFL. Go get the taxidermist or something. Find somebody who is around to ref these games. Look, I'll say this. I've talked to SEC and Big 12 refs before. I have had conversations with them. How do you figure this out? They have sit-downs. They'll rewatch the games. They have a dude who watches all the officiating calls, grades them. We don't have that in the Sun Belt, I guess, because it feels like for the last decade, it has continued to be poor officiating. And that's not to say Texas State deserved to win this game. They didn't. They looked awful in the first half. They were turning the ball over. I'm not saying Texas State should have won this. I'm just saying that when it comes down to it, officiating should not be the second opponent Texas State has to face in the same game.
I absolutely agree. And nobody should have to deal with that. But that's just the way it is in this league.
All right, let's talk about this coming week. We have the best game of the season on the college football slate. App State versus Coastal Carolina. Now, it hurts with no Zac Thomas, but this game is at Coastal. So I'm saying to myself, as a Coastal Carolina Chanticleer lifelong fan, that it doesn't matter who the quarterback is for App State. This team still needs to show up and win. All right? And 7-0, you put your undefeated season on the line against a divisional opponent who has run this division for as long as they've been in the Sun Belt Conference. I can't get any more excited for this game, Scott.
Me neither. It's going to be strength versus strength. Coastal Carolina and App State, obviously, probably the 2 best defenses in this conference. Coastal Carolina gives up 16 points a game at home. App State gives up less than 15 points a game on the road. This is just a ridiculous situation right here. So it's going to come down to offense, and that's what we were talking about before, with App State obviously taking a step back. And not only at quarterback, but the passing game, they had 4 straight games where they averaged at least 6 yards per carry until last week. They averaged 2.8 against Georgia State. So if you don't turn that around against Coastal Carolina, you don't have a run game to set up a brand new passing game, this could get ugly for App State, because Coastal Carolina's offense will find its points regardless of who they're playing against, in my opinion.
Now, what about the no-fly zone? What about App State's secondary corners and safeties? Coastal, are they going to run the ball, or are they going to try to air it out? What are you looking at here?
Going to be a strong little mix. I think Coastal Carolina throughout the season has learned to mix up their running backs very well. It started with really a heavy dose of C.J. Marable, and from there it's grown into 3 running backs, and even Grayson McCall's ran the football. So they're mixing the backfield up very well, in my opinion, and that's going to help out against App State, keeping bodies fresh against such a huge group of defenders. And that could help set up the air game. Of course, it's going to be a little bit tough with Sean Jolly and Shamar Jean-Charles back there, and Ryan Huff. That's an incredible group that you just mentioned. But I think that Coastal Carolina will be fine. I don't think they're going to run up the scoreboard like they have in the past. They're averaging over like 35 points a game. I don't think that happens here, but it's going to be enough. I think it's going to be enough because that defense is going to have a game this week, I think.
Now, how do you feel about this being the 11 a.m. kickoff on ESPN2? Because we talked a little bit about no national games last week. This week we have 3 national games. This is going to be the game that I think a lot of people are going to be tuning into, Scott.
I think so too. I like the 11 a kickoff, honestly, because I'm not there. I'm not a fan who's going to show up to the game, and I don't like the kickoff time. I'm a guy who wakes up on Saturday morning and can't wait to watch football, and having the best game of the week right off the bat, that's fine with me. I'll start the day like that. And so I'm good with it, especially with it being on ESPN2. That's really big for the Sun Belt to have its premier football game on that channel so early in the day.
I'm always going to fight for my ESPN Plus. I want big games on ESPN Plus, but I'm okay with letting essentially the 2 best teams in the conference face off against each other at 11 a.m. on ESPN2. All right, let's go. Georgia Southern and Army. Army's 6-2. Army has had a couple of up and down games, though. They're going to West Point. Georgia Southern is not a pushover, Scott. And are they going to get Army this week?
This will be a fun game. Here's what I think happens. Georgia Southern wins 7-0. That's the final score. Okay, Georgia Southern repeatedly shoots itself in the foot. They're going to have 37 3-and-outs in this game. Army is going to run some weird double reverse punt return that ends in a Georgia Southern touchdown, and the whole game lasts for 45 minutes. That's my prediction.
Our boy Alex Funderburk is not going to love to hear that his Army Golden Knights are going to be out, or whatever. Army is going to be out. Look, I think that Georgia Southern, this win would be huge for them. Beating Army, any team beating Army is a big deal, I think, because Army is not a pushover. 6-2, though, this is where I get kind of intrigued. Georgia Southern goes 7-2 with 9 games, and say they play the rest of their schedule. They are going to be one of the teams, when we're looking back at the season, Scott, as we did not talk enough about them. If this team ends up with 10 wins, which could happen, I think there's a real possibility that if they beat Army and then go on and win the next couple games, this could be a 10-win team. We're going to be looking at them next year as, oh, is that a team that could win the Sun Belt Conference? A dark horse that could win the Sun Belt Conference, I think.
You're absolutely right. And it's something I was actually thinking about, this weekend, was the fact that Georgia Southern is now 6-2. And if you just listen to their fan base, it just feels like such an up and down year. It's not. They consistently win. I understand that you're playing one possession games every single week, but you're coming out on top. And so that's good news if you're Georgia Southern. And absolutely, they could win 10 games. They got the big one that got postponed and moved towards the end of the year. App State coming up. That still stands today as something that could have Sun Belt title implications. And that comes the week before the Sun Belt Championship game. And, of course, they have Florida Atlantic before that. That's a big game as well for the conference. So, yeah, 10 wins in the bowl game, 11 wins. It's not out of the realm of possibility for Georgia Southern.
It's a real possibility. All right, let's talk Central Arkansas versus Louisiana. Louisiana, number 24 in the country now, hosting Central Arkansas. I have no care. I care very little about Arkansas teams to this point, Scott. I make it very clear. Arkansas State was the only team that I cared an ounce about, and they're having a terrible season, so I've kind of sold my stock in them. What do I need to know about Central Arkansas?
I hope that Arkansas State guy from earlier in the season doesn't watch this. You know, the guy that was complaining about my UCA stuff. But I've always been a closet UCA fan. And so I grew up in the area. So that was actually the very first football game that I ever went to was a UCA football game. So that has a place close to my heart. I think that UCA gets drubbed in this game. They've got a quarterback that has his ups and downs. He doesn't throw very pretty football, but he somehow gets it downfield. And they've got a good corner. But other than that, you know, it's an FCS football team. It's one of the best in the FCS, but hard to gauge with only a few of those teams playing. Louisiana is going to come out and win this game without a problem.
Well, that's good. Also, it's nice to remember that Arkansas has too many football teams. That they're a state that, you know how we go around and we're like, oh, Texas has 100 football teams and Florida has 200. Arkansas has like 4 too many. We need to cut back on their football. Too many football teams.
They do have a lot of football. UCA is also in a town with like 6 or 7 different universities too. So it's a lot going on in that state that you don't really think about.
No, isn't Hendrix there too?
Hendrix is in town. It's just a few miles away from UCA. Yeah.
I went there this summer. I went to Hendrix this summer to see a buddy, and it shocked me that you drive into the town and they're like home of 5 universities.
That's incredible. I also went to Hendrix this summer as well, so that's awesome that we were in the same place near the same time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Middle Tennessee and Troy. This is a game that I'm really high on Middle Tennessee, even though they're 2-6. I think that they are better than they probably actually are. They're going up against your Troy Trojans, Scott. So while wearing a Troy Trojans hat, tell me objectively, who wins this game?
I think Troy does. Honestly, just because, you know, I thought about it when the first game happened. This is the back end of a home and home. This is a trophy game. The trophy currently sits in Troy now. That first game, I think, was 42-14. It was not close. The defense played a phenomenally well game. Middle Tennessee is bad for a Conference USA team, which is super bad. And so now you're making the return trip. You're playing at Troy. The difference between Troy and MTSU, that MTSU game, there wasn't a single fan in the stands. This time around, there's going to be around 12,000 fans cheering for Troy at this game. I don't understand how Troy opened as just a 10-point favorite. I
got a question, because this did just hit me, because we talked about Middle Tennessee earlier this season, and I thought I was just having deja vu, but I'm not. These two teams did face off against each other earlier this year. Why? Why are we playing the same team two times a season, Scott? What's the deal here?
Coronavirus. That's the deal. Scheduling stuff. The Troy athletic director, Brent Jones, he said he went through probably about 120 different scheduling scenarios for Troy before the season started. And honestly, I thought he did a good job bringing in an old rival and having that trophy game brought back a home and home too. That was something that the Troy fans were big fans of, especially with that trophy actually sitting in Murfreesboro before the season started. And it's been sitting up there for almost a decade now. So honestly, I like it. I like it. So it fills up the schedule. You got up to 12 games, which not everybody has. And so that's why they're playing twice. And here's the back end. Here's hoping to another result like the front end too.
And you said you don't expect it to be a 40-something point game?
Honestly, I don't know what to expect with Troy, but I'm shocked that the spread is only 10 points when the first game was a 28-point game. I don't think it's going to be a massive 40-point blowout. I don't think it's going to be close either.
That's fair. All right, let's talk about South Alabama and Georgia State. Both these teams were kind of, I don't know, middle of the road on. Is that the right phrase? We're middle of the road on both these teams, or how do we feel about this? Because this is the apathy bowl to me.
if Georgia State is middle of the road, South Alabama is the car right behind Georgia State. And they're trying to pass. They've got their blinker on, but Georgia State is being that really mean guy that's blocking the road. That is what I think about when I think about this game. I think that Georgia State is ahead of South Alabama. They're program-wise, they're almost the exact same age. They've been in the Sun Belt for like the exact same amount of time. Georgia State has had 3 winning seasons. South Alabama hasn't had any. But none of Georgia State's winning seasons have been like big 9-3 years. They've been like 7-6, or 8-5 or something like that. So this is something that I feel like South Alabama is going to use as a measuring stick. Hey, we're a little bit better this year. Can we catch up to Georgia State? They're in the same boat in the other side of the league.
Well, it's interesting because record-wise, Georgia State 3-4, 2-4 in the Sun Belt. South Alabama 3-5, 2-3 in the Sun Belt. So, I mean, winning percentage-wise, a little bit better. But yeah, again, I don't know. I don't know how to pick this. Scott, it's an open secret that I am the champion of our Pick'em League. Every single week, I seem to do very well, and you seem to struggle. So I need to find what your pick is, and then I will pick against that.
Okay, you say every single week, but this past week was my first week in a while where I struggled, and only because I decided to pick against you in every single game, which went directly against my strategy for the week, which was for every week was to match your picks entirely except for one that I felt the most confident about changing. And it was working for me, and then I just got flustered. I don't know what happened. So I got to
Who wins this game, Scott?
Georgia State wins the game outright.
Okay. I like it. I like the heat. All right, let's talk a little bit about my poverty franchise, and then we'll talk about the game that might get canceled. That's what we call a tease in the industry, Scott. All right, let's talk about my poverty franchise, the Texas State Bobcats, who host Arkansas State. Now, if you were to say to me at the beginning of the season, one of these teams would be the most disappointing, I would say it was probably going to be Texas State. But I make a case here that Arkansas State is much more disappointing than the Bobcats. Can you hear me out? This team, Arkansas State, was supposed to compete against Louisiana. This was supposed to be Louisiana's closest competition in the division. They have not been that. The 2-quarterback system did not work. We knew it wasn't going to work. I told you it wasn't going to work. It didn't work. Shocking. But for them to be in a similar situation, 1-4 in the Sun Belt, Bobcats 1-5, that's embarrassing. They should be embarrassed. I feel bad for Red Bull fans.
I agree. I think we should run a poll at the end of the year actually asking fans who was the most disappointing team. I would lean Arkansas State just because of previous expectations. With Texas State, it's not shocking that they're sitting here this late in the year with 1 win. It's not just this stunning thing, this holy cow, Texas State has just 1 win this year. Are you kidding me? What? This is not a big deal. This is normal year in, year out stuff. For Arkansas State, however, to not be second in the league right now, that is a big deal. It's not like Arkansas State to not be competing for a title, whether it's division or conference. So I would go with Arkansas State as the most disappointing team.
Now, if we're going to be nice, it's COVID year. Is it COVID? Was it injuries? When we look back at Arkansas State, is it going to be the season you're in review? Oh, this was a one-off. A player got hurt. That's what did it. Or was everybody bad? Because I'm looking at it kind of like I think everybody was kind of bad.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a COVID thing. If it was a COVID thing, ADs wouldn't be firing their head coaches this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's an Arkansas State thing. It's a coaching thing. It's a personnel thing. Everything's fallen off. I think you're especially disappointed knowing that you actually beat Kansas State in week 2. So it's this is not a COVID thing. This is a thing that you've got to deal with, and you've got to deal with this offseason.
Now, at what point do I don't know, because we look at Coastal Carolina, we look at App State as the two beacons of hope for the conference. But I'm looking at it as those players bought in from day one, and they were involved, and they were all in. And it feels like Arkansas State at some point, the players, the coaches, the athletic administration, at some point somebody kind of sold out. Do you see that too, or is it just me being crazy?
No, you might be right. This might be a situation where a coach leaving might have been a good thing. A program reset is probably what Arkansas State needed 2 or 3 years ago. I think Blake Anderson probably had some opportunities to move on in the coaching carousel in past years and decided to stick around. That may have not been a very good thing because as we see all across the country with coaches, once they get 4 to 5 years in, you see whether they're successful or they're not. And so with Blake Anderson, you may have seen him riding the curtails of what was a coaching carousel's. It's hard to explain. Nobody built the Arkansas State program because they were winning games with one coach per year, a brand new coach. But it's almost like those coaches came together like as a village to build this program that was really good. Blake Anderson inherited it, immediately benefited from it.
He stuck around too long.
It has fallen apart.
Mm-hmm.
He's been around too long.
It's the bicycle that doesn't ever get ridden. You know what I mean? If you got a bunch of siblings, you pass the bicycle down, the youngest sibling rides the hell out of that bicycle, starts falling apart. They rode it too much. That's what Blake Anderson did with Arkansas State. That's a great analogy, and I'm probably going to steal that in the future. I love that analogy. That's a really good one.
Thank you.
That's a good one. It's the game's at Texas State. Is there a shot that the Bobcats win this?
I think there is. I think there's a legitimate chance that they do win this game. I love wide receiver cornerback battles, so having Agent Zero go against those Arkansas State wide receivers should be a lot of fun. I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas State lost. I would not be surprised if they won by 20 either.
Can I get a hot take?
Hot take.
Hot take. Agent Zero on Coastal Carolina, he is the defensive player of the year.
That is a pretty hot take.
This is where I'm coming from with this. That dude is everywhere, and I have not seen him consistently get burnt in any game. And Texas State has not played a bunch of pushover, run-first teams. Played SMU. He was out there. They played all these teams that really can air the ball out, and I really do think that if he played on a Coastal Carolina team that has a very good defense where everybody's doing their job consistently, nobody could throw to him. He would have probably 2 more interceptions on the season, and we would be talking about him as Defensive Player of the Year.
That makes me think of a pretty fun idea. I'd have to think about this, but if you could move one Sunbelt player to another team, who would it be and where would they go?
Brady McBride to Coastal Carolina so I could have a team that I can fully root for.
Why would you want Brady McBride to sit behind Grayson McCall all season?
That's awful. That's awful.
It's not awful. This is reality. I would like to see Jeremiah Haydell on Coastal Carolina. That would be fun, I think.
What Coastal Carolina player can move off the Chanticleers, immediately make an impact somewhere else?
Anybody on the front seven. Teron Jackson would just destroy. Imagine Teron Jackson at App State or Teron Jackson next to Will Cholo at Troy. Jeffrey Gunter would be another one. Those inside linebackers, Teddy Gallagher. Oh, boy. Put Teddy Gallagher next to Justin Rice at Arkansas State, and you've got a nasty combo over there.
All right. We got to wrap this one up, though, but we have to talk about ULM. We slipped this in here very, very much at the end. That game might get canceled. Tell us a little bit more about it.
All I see is people on Twitter, mostly La Tech folks, saying that it looks like this game is not going to be played. Nothing official has come out. Maybe it has during this podcast. I don't know. But it looks like it's not going to be played. This is phenomenal news for the Sun Belt Conference. The Sun Belt will not take a 30-point loss to Conference USA if this game gets postponed. This is great news for everybody, and it's a big thumb to Louisiana Tech for not scheduling Louisiana and instead taking the easy way out. Screw you.
That's a good one. ULM, I don't like their jerseys either. That's what I'm going to add. Not a big fan of the jerseys. If they had anything good going for them, that would be it. Texas State's the best-looking losers in the conference every week. So it's tough. All right. Did we miss anything, Scott?
I don't think so. This was a very full podcast for having only 3 games.
Yeah, very full. All right. Next week, we'll tell you about how Coastal Carolina wants Bama. Stick around. I'll see you next week, Scott.
I'll see you.